Good day, students. So last meeting, we are done already with the first data normalization. So for this day, we're going to solve the different anomalies that we identify on the first data normalization through the second data normalization. So to start with, we have here our objective. For the first objective, we are going to identify and discuss the second data normal form. And for the second objective, we are going to perform the second data normalization form. Okay? So before we start, we have here the case that we are going to solve at the end of our session. So into this case, a new subject cannot be entered in the subject table if there are no students enrolled for a particular subject. So this is the case that we are raised, or this is the case that I raised on our previous discussion video. So ang ibig sabihin nito, ang isang subject daw or ang subject ay hindi pwede or ang bagong subject ay hindi pwedeng i-add sa ating subject table kung walang naka-enroll na estudyante sa subject na yan. Okay? So before we are that is the case that we need to solve at the end of our discussion video. So let's take a review on the first normalization form. So di ba dun sa first data normalization, we converted the actual form, okay, the physical form into a database form. That's why we created or we come up with a flat file database table containing the student ID, the student name, contact number, college, course, subject code, and subject description, and of course the units. And of course, by performing the first data normalization, we created or we group the different field names based on their function. That's why we come up with the student information table, the contact information table, and of course, lastly will be the subject information table. Okay, so for today, we are now going to perform the second data normal form, or on other words, that is the last data normalization form that we are going to perform in order for us to organize and of course to make our database system efficient. Okay, so tatanggalin na natin ang ating flat file table kasi na-solve na natin. So our final tables now is no other than this one. Okay, so yung ating student table, we have our student table, the contact information table, and of course the subject table. So that is the final table that we come up for the first data normalization form, but we're now going to perform the second data normalization form. So through the case that I gave you a while ago. So ang kaso natin kanina, sabi sa ating kaso, hindi natin pwede or hindi tayo pwede or we cannot insert or add a new subject without a student enrolled into that subject. So, hindi tayo pwedeng mag-add ng panibagong subject kung walang naka-enroll na estudyante sa subject na yon. So, yung kaso na yun yung isa-solve natin this day. Kaya lang through this table, hindi po niya kayang isolve yung kaso na yun because it needs a student ID. That's why we created a separated table for the student ID and of course the subject code kasi student ID tsaka yung subject code is used to show kung anong mga subject ang in-enroll ng estudyante natin. And we can call this subject or you can call the new table as an enrolled or enrollment table or enrolled table. So, dito natin makikita yung mga in-enroll ng ating mga estudyante. So, of course, yung ating student IDs, naka-assign siya as a foreign key. Pag sinabi nating foreign key, hindi pa siya primary key. Ang ibig sabihin ng foreign key, hindi siya primary key at pwede siyang ma-duplicate or pwedeng ma-duplicate yung value ng ating information na ilalagay sa ating student ID. Pero dito sa ating subject code, it is assigned as a primary key kasi isang subject once na na-enroll ng estudyante, let's say for example, na-enroll ng isang estudyante sa Ecology 2, hindi naman po pwede na i-enroll pa niya ulit yung Ecology 2. Okay? Ng the same. Okay? At the same time. Okay? So, hindi po pwede. That's why inassign natin si subject code as a primary key. And of course, in order for us to identify kung kaninong subject yon, we need to specify the student ID. Through the student ID, we use the student ID coming from the student student information table, and of course, we use the subject code coming from the subject information table. So dito sa new tables na to, hindi na tayo nagta-type dito. So ang ginagawa na lang natin dito is kinukuha natin yung student ID na nasa student information table at kinukuha na lang natin yung subject code na nasa subject information table. That's why, to solve our case, tatanggalin na natin ang student ID sa ating subject information table. So, pag tinanggal natin ang student ID, wala na magre-restrict sa atin pag mag-a-add tayo ng panibagong subject dito sa table na to. Okay, bakit wala na magre-restrict? Kasi pwede na tayong mag-add ng panibagong table kasi hindi na siya naghahanap ng student ID. Okay, student ID which will prove na, which is a proof, serve as a proof na may naka-enroll sa subject na yon. Okay, pero dito pwede na natin ilagay or mag-add ng panibagong subject kahit walang naka-enroll na estudyante. Example, mag-a-add ako ng panibagong subject na Filipino kasi nagkaroon na ng Filipino ang school. Example lang. Of course, kung mag-add ako ng subject na Filipino, all I have to do now is to come up with a subject code na walang katulad. Okay, gagawan ko siya ng ID. So, pwede kong ilagay dyan na F058 or F056, yung ID ng ating Filipino. Okay, then ilalagay ko dito sa subject description, Filipino, kung ilang units siya, let's say for example, 3 units, then na-add na siya. Hindi na siya maghahanap ng student ID. Pag hindi na siya naghanap ng student ID, ibig sabihin kahit may naka-enroll or walang naka-enroll sa subject na yon, pwede na nating i-add yung subject sa ating subject information table. Okay? So, yun siya. The same as to this is enroll table. What if yung estudyante, example si Mr. Leo. Mr. Leo kasi through the student ID na kilala kong si Mr. Leo ito. Okay, so si Mr. Leo, trinap niya yung ecology 2 niya. Okay, ito yung ecology 2 niya. Paano ko nalaman na ecology 2 niya yan? Because of the subject ID or the subject code. Drinap ni Mr. Leo yung ecology 2 na. Ngayon, yung gagawin ng encoder, i-delete lang niya yung information na nakalagay sa ating enrolled table. Okay, so i-delete niya. Pag dinelete niya itong information na to, madidelete ba yung personal information ni Mr. Leo? Hindi po. Okay, hindi madidelete yung personal information ni Mr. Leo. And of course, madidelete ba yung subject information table kung saan kinuha natin yung subject code? Hindi rin po. Okay, hindi siya madidelete kasi nga po itong enrolled table, kinuha lang natin yung information coming from the student information table at yung subject code, kinuha lang din natin coming from the subject information table. So, ibig sabihin, ginamit lang natin yung mga information in order for us to show kung ano yung mga subject na in-enroll ng ating mga estudyante. So, once na may mga nag-drop sa ating subject, all we have to do is to delete the information that is integrated or that is included in our enrolled table. So example, pag dinilit ni Mr. Leo or pag drinap ni Mr. Leo yung kanyang ecology 2, all we have to do is to delete the information na nasa enrolled table. At pag dinilit natin ito, wala pong effect yan sa student table, wala rin pong effect yan sa subject information table, at mas lalong walang effect yan sa contact information table. Okay? Kasi ang dinilit lang natin ay kung ano yung in-enroll at drinap ni Mr. Leo. So, through that reason, nagkaroon na ngayon ng relationship si subject information table kay enrolled table at nagkaroon na din ng relationship si student information table sa ating enrolled table. And of course, yung ating contact information table, nagkaroon na din siya ng relationship sa ating subject information table. Okay? So kung mapapansin, our main table here is no other than the student personal information table. And of course, our secondary main table will be the subject information table. So yun siya. Okay? So we created a new table in order for us to show the kung ano yung in-enroll ng ating estudyante or kung ano yung mga subject na in-enroll ng ating students. And of course, we solve already our case kanina. Okay, yung case natin kanina is we should or dapat yung user is allowed to add a new subject kahit may naka-enroll na sa student or wala mang naka-enroll na student, dapat pwede pa rin tayo makapag-add ng panibagong subject. That's why we remove the student ID here and we created a new table showing the enrolled subject by the students. Okay, so yun po yung second data normalization. So let's take a look on the updates of the second data normalization anomalies. For the second data normalization anomalies, actually, hindi ko na siya tinatawag or kinikilalang anomalies into this part kasi na-solve na natin lahat ng mga anomalies na pwede nating ma-encounter into this or by performing the second data normalization anomalies, pero tawagin pa rin natin siyang anomalies. So for the first anomaly, we have the insertion anomalies, of course. For the insertion anomalies, a new subject could now be added without any student enrolled uh, in a particular subject. So, paano nangyari yon? Kasi dun sa ating subject information table, wala na tayong hinahanap dito na student ID. So, kahit walang naka-enroll na subject, pwede na nating i-add. Ay, kahit walang naka-enroll na estudyante, pwede na tayong mag-add ng panibagong subject. Okay? So, yun si insertion anomaly. So deletion anomalies, if a student decide to drop out of the subject, then the subject information would remain intact. So ibig sabihin, kahit i-drop ni estudyante o i-drop ng ating estudyante yung kanyang subject, mananatili na nandoon yung mga information ng ating subject. Kasi drinap lang naman niya yung in-enroll niyang subject. Hindi naman drinap lang naman niya yung in-enroll niyang subject. So dapat ang i-delete lang natin is yung in-enroll niyang subject, but we should not delete the subject that we created on the subject information table. So deletion anomalies. So for the modification anomalies naman, if the school decided to change the subject code, there is only one value that has to be modified. So let's say for example, balik ako doon para mas ma-explain. For the modification, let's say for example, dito sa subject information table, itong ecology 2. So ang subject code niya is B058. So pag ginawa ko yung B059, automatic magiging B059 yung mga nanditong B058. Okay, bakit naging ganon? Kasi nagkaroon na ng relationship yung ating subject information table sa ating enrolled or enrollment information table. Okay, so yun lang siya. So for the modification, mas madali na lang siya. Bakit automatic na nag-change yung information dito? Kasi hindi natin tinype yung mga nandito, but we fetch the information coming from the other table, which is coming from the subject information table. So, yun po yung modification anomalies po natin. Okay, so we have the insertion anomalies, pero hindi na siya tinatawag na anomalies kasi it's already solved. The same as to the deletion anomalies. And lastly will be the modification anomalies. Okay, so that's the end of our second data normalization form. So I believe into your activity, you're going to convert naman the first data normalization form that you've created on the week number 3. And for the week number 4, you're going to perform the second data normalization using your output on week number 3. And here is the question that I want you to realize at the end of this session. So how is performing the second data normalization help us in creating an efficient and effective database system? Okay, so that's all students. Good luck to your activity. And reminder that um, for the first or for the second preliminary, you are required to answer from week 1 up to week number 4. Then for the second periodical naman is week 5 to week number 8. Okay, so that's all. Thank you for listening.